Garoppolo. Thrown down. Brian Burns gets there. Spider-Man. What a pass rush by Burns. See how quickly he got to the edge and got
This is Desmond Johnson on the Bleav and Carolina Panthers podcast, here on the Bleav Podcast Network, the #1 podcast network for professionals. Do you Bleav? If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and rate the show on iTunes. We're available in your favorite directories: iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Luminary, and TuneIn. You can also find us at Bleav.com and at Bleav Podcast on Twitter. It is a postseason Bleav in Carolina Panthers podcast episode. I'm your host, Desmond Johnson, joined by all Panthers SI beat writer Schuyler, Callihan, and the Panthers all-time leading rusher Jonathan Stewart in the house. Everybody here. Season is over. Blessed 2-15 season might go down as the worst season in Panthers history. We survived it, just like we survived the weather that came through the Carolinas today. Hope everybody's safe, got power, and you're able to watch us here on Bleav in Panthers here on the Bleav Podcast Network, brought to you by BetOnline. We got a loaded show today. Of course, this is the time of the year where Schuyler Callihan shines, where we get into coaching searches and GM searches and things of that sort. So we'll definitely get the latest from Schuyler. Final thoughts on the 2023 season from both these guys. Any bright spots they can think of that they want to highlight, get a little positivity in here for us, because that's how we do on Bleav in Panthers. End of season awards. Offense and defensive players of the year will nominate. Biggest breakout player, storyline of the year for the team. And some comments from Brian Burns that I thought were pretty interesting that we pulled that we'll talk about as well. Of course, the big news for us and the title of this episode, Scott Fitterer gets fired after 3 years of being general manager of the Carolina Panthers. We'll talk about that. The Fitterer timeline, we'll get into that as well. Some of the moves he made, and just kind of comment on how good or bad those moves were that he did. Top candidates. It seems like there's some maybe possible internal candidates emerging. We'll talk about that as well. And of course, we got to talk about my man Jim Harbaugh, won the national championship for Michigan last night. Everybody that watches the show knows he's one of my favorites to take over as the head coach here. I did not realize, guys, that he has a relationship with Ejiro Evero. He was on his staff when he was the head coach of the 49ers. So that kind of made me go, ooh. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. But before we get into all that stuff, we got to get a word in from our sponsors over at BetOnline. With the NFL playoffs right around the corner and the NBA season in full swing, BetOnline has you covered up with all the up-to-the-second odds, news, and scores. With additional odds, lines, trends, and info on both desktop and mobile, you can access the world's best wagering on information anytime. Head there today to get into the action and see all the updated odds. Remember to use the promo code Bleav, BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts, and where we normally start is the box score. We're not going to do that. 9-0, Panthers get blanked out. I think first time ever they've been blanked out back-to-back games in any part of a season in their entire history. Just a fitting way to end the season. And to me, the perfect way, I do remember this part because I was telling you guys off camera I was sick on Sunday, so I was kind of watching the game with a fever on the couch. But the one thing I remember seeing that kind of encapsulated the entire season to me was the should have been touchdown throw to DJ Chark, where catches it, Bryce breaks out on a scramble, gets free, finds Chark wide open down the field. You're all like, yes, he's running down the field. It looked like he's going to get caught right at the goal line, gets punched out, touchback, give the ball back to the Bucs, no points. And that's kind of how the season was, for me and the Panthers. I'm going to start it with you, Stu, because you're the positivity of this podcast panel. You're the one that brings the the light to the darkness. So yeah, man, help us, please, because I don't know where to go here. It's looking dim, brother. It's 2-15 season. Head coach gone, general manager gone. We got free agents all over the place. I'm gonna get to the Brian Burns comments in a little bit, but just give me your overall thoughts on this season and how it went down and how they can move forward.
In a nutshell, man, it was bad. There's no way around that word. I think everybody going into this season, had high expectations, and rightfully so. If you're a Panther fan, you don't go into any season thinking to yourself, oh, well, here comes another season of losing. And nor does that locker room. Going in on paper, you look at what's on paper for the Carolina Panthers, and you say, "Wow, this has a shot." But I think what we've learned throughout this season is the importance of depth. You don't have depth at certain positions, especially right there at front, offensive line, defensive line. I mean, and not having the consistent coaching around these players. And when I say consistency, I feel like maybe we learned also too there's too many cooks in the kitchen this year.
Heard that a lot, yeah.
And you got to figure out, this offseason, how to bring the right the right staff in here that can lead men, that can change a culture, that can create a culture, and that voices could be heard, and so that way players know, what voice to follow, and what voice to depend on. And I think, the expectations, were that we had that, and Carolina Panthers as a whole have to figure out, what they're going to be down the road, and down the road meaning now. That time starts now.
Yes.
Start putting a plan in place now and follow it and stick to it. I think a lot of times we take for granted stability, and we can call Frank Reich, say that he failed. You can say Scott Fitterer failed. You can say a lot of things about the people that have been in the tabloids of the sense of, these guys have failed. But the truth of the matter is, it's hard for anybody to be successful when you don't have consistent footing, when you don't have something to fall back on, when you don't have, an opportunity to know what your culture is, to know what the baseline is. And we haven't had that because we haven't had stability.
Yep.
And so, but, if you want me to go positive right now, I got you positive, Pete.
Please.
Going into this offseason, man, look, I'm going to name off this guy right now. Okay, there's a scouting. I looked up this scouting report on this young man. He is well-rounded. The big concern will be that he relies too much on his upper body strength at times. This means that he plays with poor leverage and is too upright coming out of his stance. However, this is something that should be correctable with the right coaching. Who is that player?
Ike Ekwonu?
No.
Is this a guy on the Panthers?
The guy on the Panthers.
Derrick Brown?
Yes, sir. Derrick Brown, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
Look, Derrick Brown is my team MVP.
Let's get into it. Yeah.
Because when we want to talk about, what we should be looking forward to, we should be looking forward to Derrick Brown being exactly what we saw this year. If you're not drafting guys that have the same energy, the same craft, the same ability, if we're not drafting guys like that, then we doing it all wrong. And I'm talking about across the whole board, because watching Derrick Brown throughout the season, the games that they were not in, and I mean every single game besides 2.
Yeah.
Derrick Brown's energy is what I want to see from all phases of football. I mean, the attitude, the mindset. I mean,
he grew up.
Him getting, yeah, you know what I'm saying? And I think last year, towards the end of the season, or really once they let certain coaching staff go last year, it was like he was unleashed. It was like
You're right.
it was almost kind of like he started coaching himself or something. I don't know, because going through and listing off this player's weaknesses, I saw these weaknesses as strengths this year. Upper body strength.
And he was ragdolling 300-pound
Yeah, he
linemen.
was out there throwing people out the club. Give me that tackle. I need that. I got to get this record out of the way right quick.
Shout out to him for that. I didn't even realize that was the record. Like, so he the record was what, 99? He finished like 102 or something like that. So
something. Yeah.
100 something. So Derrick Brown is now your new NFL.
Yeah, shout out to Derrick Brown for being a record holder.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's, that like I'm not gonna go out there and just say this, but like he stays healthy, he is on track for a Hall of Fame career.
I feel like he's on that. He's one of those top 4 or 5 DTs like a year from now, if not already.
Yes. Like he's the number 1 best defensive lineman in the league, hands down. I don't care what you got to say. Argue with your mama.
Well, I know the Pro Bowl snubs because nobody was really watching the Panthers. Willie Smith says, a super fan for Bleav in Panthers, says, if we were honest about 18 months to 2 years ago, people were calling Derrick Brown a bust. They were. People were. We weren't, but people were.
And we can argue, we can say that if this is the case, 18 months to 2 years ago, the coaching was a bust, because once they were let go, Derrick Brown was like, yes, I'm so glad they're gone and I can play now or something.
Yeah.
If he's getting better pass rush, which I think he improved somewhat this year, if he gets to the quarterback more and starts averaging 5, 6, 7 sacks a year, we're going to be talking about Derrick Brown like we talked about Aaron Donald for the last couple.
I was going to say the same thing, because I see the same stuff. Like they're having to double him like every time, and he's still getting through. He's still getting through. Oh my!
He's a bona fide stud.
Yeah. So you got that, and you got another, because this is year 4 for him next year, right? Or so.
This was his 4th year, right?
Or was it? So is he going into his 5th year? No, Burns is going to his 5th year. They can sign him to a 5th year now if they have to. Brown is going into his.
This was Derrick's 4th year.
This was his 4th year, so he's going to his 5th year too. So was Burns on his 5th?
No, Burns was on his 5th.
Yeah.
He's about to be an unrestricted free agent. Yes.
Jesus Christ. Okay, so let's.
All I know is you got to pay Derrick. You better pay Derrick Brown.
Yeah, you better pay Derrick.
Figure that out.
From Burns being the number 1 priority to Derrick Brown is the thing you need to build around everything else. Like it needs to be him and then everything else. Of course, I don't want Brian Burns to go anywhere, but give me your from covering the team all year, Schuyler. Give me your bright spot that you can think of for for the season.
That it's with. I mean, there was no really good signs at all, really, outside of Derrick Brown. I mean, it was just that bad of a year. And I don't know. I mean, in some ways, I think we were all, on David Tepper for pulling the plug as early as he did on Frank. And you can look at it in hindsight and say it was the right decision. I still think it would have probably made sense to just let Frank go for a little bit longer. Not that he had to get the whole season, but I think regardless, we all kind of sensed that this was going to be a situation where they were going to make a change. And I don't know that it's necessarily Tepper admitting that he made a mistake. I just think, like, look, if something's not working, it's as bad as it is, you got to make a change. Like, you can't prolong this thing. You've got so much invested in the Bryce Young. You've got to get this thing worked out now. Like, you can't wait. You can't ruin this kid. So, I mean, we're going to get into it with the coaches and stuff and the GM candidates, but they have to absolutely get this offseason right. Like, if anything else, they've got to get the right coach, right GM. Players and stuff, that'll all get figured out over the next 2 or 3 years because, like I said the last episode, this team's not competing next year. They're not competing 2 years from now. They're going to potentially – that window for them, as you talk about all the time, Desmond, their window starts 3 years from now, from when they can actually contend.
See, the problem with that is Bryce will be on the 4th year of his rookie contract. So it's like, it's not lining up. They need someone that can accelerate that timeline, right?
You start going and spending a ton of money in free agency, kind of like what Jacksonville did with Trevor Lawrence on the rookie deal. The problem is it didn't work out. Now look, most of that coaching staff has been fired. True. So I don't know if that's the case, if that's what you want to do or not. regardless, they have got to fix the depth. And I know I'm beating this like a dead horse, but the 2 deep, the 3 deep, if you go and compare it every single week, and I do because I have to know the other team's situation, plus I do their depth chart every week, it is insane to see the guys that are on this 2 deep compared to other 2 deeps. I mean, you look at some of these other teams, they got starters in their 2 deep. Carolina's got guys that are probably fringe practice squad guys on other rosters.
Off the street, like a lot of them, feels like. Yeah. I've had some time over the past couple of weeks because I felt like we were coming down on – I didn't want us just to be part of the herd coming down on David Tepper because I wanted to pull back out, not look at it from like a microcosm, you know what I mean? I wanted to pull all the way back out now the season was over and just kind of look at what the man has done with the team since he's had it. Yes, he hasn't had a winning season. He hadn't really had a quarterback. The team's been this way or whatever, but I wanted to focus on the 3 coaching hires that he had, right? So really people say he's impatient and all these things, but looking back on it, he's really tried 3 different ways to bring in a coach, like, and the different times he's brought in one. So he had the traditional defensive guy in Ron Rivera here when he got here. I can understand he wanted to, clean house, start brand new. It's his team, new regime, blah, blah, blah. I get all that. So you go get a college coach that's had success in college. You pretty much give him complete control over football operations, which is what everyone's yelling for him to do now. It didn't work. So he pulls it away and he gives him almost 3 years to make it work. Doesn't work, fires him. The next guy he brings in, Steve Wilkes was the interim, but the next person you bring in is Frank Wright, which is basically the opposite of it. You bring in kind of a CEO type and you try to fill an all-star cast of like coaches around him thinking that, oh, you just need to surround a head coach with a bunch of talented coaches and that'll work. That didn't work. Too many voices. He's fired before the season even begins. So now I'm like, okay, he's about to hire he's about to actually hire his 3rd one. And the guy I want the most, I want him to have the power that he had for the first guy. I want him to hire Jim Harbaugh and give him the power that he gave Matt Rule. Like, doesn't that sound like the most sense? Because that's because you still have a GM here. And I don't think Jim Harbaugh wants full control. He just wants to have some say in what's coming in. He don't want to just be like, hey, here's a player, try to figure out what to do with him.
Man, you don't know what Jim Harbaugh thinking, boy.
I talked to him the other day. I talked to him yesterday. We talk all the time. Like me and him, we tight.
I talked to Obama yesterday too.
I was the one that was telling him, hey man, forget running Corum in the first and second quarter. Run that other dude. The dude you ain't ran in like 8-9 weeks. Run him.
Hey,
let's see what happens.
Yeah, that was by the fact. Who is that guy?
I don't know.
I was like, wow.
And he was doing it. He was doing it like Tecmo Bowl style. Did you know? Like he would come up to the line and just wait like a half second, and then like everybody would bunch over here, and he would just just run out. Basically, no one there.
He was running that first touchdown. He was running with his eyes closed.
Yeah,
definitely ran into the back of that lineman. Sometimes it work out because you hide and then you pop out as long as your head's still up.
Man, that was an interesting national championship.
I know you've been on Jim for a long time, and I think if you can get the right mix, it can work. If Tepper's willing to have a coach with that much power, so-called, because I mean, we're talking about power, like Matt just had control of the roster and stuff like that. With Harbaugh, it's not. It's more. It's like full on. This is Jim's team. That's what's going to happen.
That's what we want, though, right? We want somebody that can bring in a culture.
It's his whole operation. And the other thing is, too, is like – and I just dropped my phone. But we're all good. So my first choice is still Ben Johnson. But that kind of changed a little bit today because I've said for weeks you need an alpha. And there's not a bigger alpha on the market right now than Vrabel.
Oh, yeah. I've had 4 people text me about Vrabel. Yeah.
You want an offensive guy, I get it. But that's a hard one to pass up on, man.
I feel like
who you say?
Mike Vrabel, the Titans head coach. I feel like he's going to end up in New England. Like, they're going to part ways and Vrabel just slide in. That's why I haven't really – everybody that's texted me today about it, I'm just like, nah, I feel like he'll end up going with Kraft in New England. It's kind of custom fit for him to kind of be the heir apparent over there. And so I haven't even really focused my attention on it. I was more like Harbaugh completed the story. He finished the story. He has nothing left to do in college sports right now. He brought a national championship to his alma mater. He defeated their biggest rival, Iowa, Alabama, and the runner-up to the Heisman or whatever in his last 4 games. Like that's pretty good stuff. Like, and now you get to go back to the NFL potentially, and you already have the highest win percentage of any NFL coach that's ever existed. I mean, it's set. Like it's set. He's coming back. I just don't know where. Everybody keeps saying the Chargers, but hey, man, money talks.
I think the Chargers is actually a really good. If I'm looking for a head coaching job, and I get to choose,
you already got your quarterback.
That Chargers job is looking real sexy.
That's what I was going to ask the both of you, because this keeps coming up to me. People keep asking, with these open opportunities, the places that have a quarterback already in place. How often do you hear that about us, that we have a quarterback in place, so it makes it a destination that a coach will come to? Which makes me kind of question, well, how do these outside coaches feel about Bryce Young? Like, do you hear that very often in comparison to what both you guys just said about Justin Herbert? Like, that's the reason you go there, right?
Well, I think Justin Herbert obviously has more years under his belt. I mean, he's on a 2nd contract now, right? So
yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's a lot that he's already proven in the sense of, hey, this kid can play. And though we think like Bryce Young is talented, like he's proven a lot this year, even though considering the lack of protection he's had, targets to throw to, the changes on the coaching staff. I mean, everything you can ask for to go wrong happened for him this year. And he stayed healthy. He weathered the storm. And he showed glimpses, man. I mean, given the opportunities that he's had. So as far as like his ceiling, it's so high. And that's what you're excited about if you're a coach, because now you have a guy that has not even scratched like the beginnings of a surface. You know what I'm saying? So like when you talk about the difference between, a team that has a quarterback and, I guess, a turnkey system, that's what the Chargers, I think, has. Now, when you look at the Carolina Panthers, this is a situation where you can come in and say, from like, no doubt about it, you coming in and you have your hands on the pottery. You know what I'm saying? The making the pot, whatever you want to call it. But like, you have an opportunity to have your hands in the defense, offense, special teams, coaching staff, and say, you know what? I get a chance to put something special together. And that's what you're looking at the Carolina Panthers as an opportunity. And you're going to, and that's going to require a guy that has energy, that has, a dominance in, the locker room, an alpha mentality, like you guys were saying. It's going to require a lot. That's for sure. Tough skin, all of it.
I understand. I understand all of that, but you didn't answer the question.
What was the question?
Is Bryce Young a quarterback that these coaches are going to look at as a franchise building block going forward after what you just saw this year? And before you even answer that, let me just address this real quick, because we're not the type. We are a podcast for the Carolina Panthers on the Bleav Network, right? But we are not the type of podcast that will just let certain comments slide. And I'm seeing a Nato Jenkins in the comments trying to tell you why we mad, son. Trying to get feisty, and I ain't having it. It's Tuesday. The season's over. We just went 2-15, bro. Okay, look, I'm just letting you know. Like, if you're gonna say something, say something. Give me the question. Give me whatever it is you think I'm not saying. Go ahead and say it. It's okay. Like, we're all family here, but don't just be coming in.
Nato Jenkins, we can't even see his face,
bro. Don't even.
He might roll up. He might roll up on you. You better be careful.
We don't do that here. Like, all right, carry on. Go ahead. I
think they have to look at him as a franchise guy, because they put so much into. He's not going anywhere. So
he's here.
Your view is you have to be sold on Bryce Young getting the guy, or being the guy, and being the one that turns this franchise around, because they're not bringing in another quarterback via trade as a veteran. They're not drafting another one. You've got to be the one that's sold on this guy to make it work. So yeah, he's got to be. They have to view him as that.
It's not like if say my dream comes true and Jim Harbaugh comes in, it's not like he's going to draft JJ McCaffrey or whatever, and it's going to be a quarterback battle between him and Bryce Young or whatever. Whoever takes this job is taking it with the idea that Bryce Young is this is our dude we're building around. Like this is it. Like, you know,
it's
so
not a Chicago situation where Justin Fields, he might work out, but if not, we got, first round draft pick to work with.
Yeah.
No, I get that's next year they do have 1 in 25, but you get my point. They're not going to be moving off of Bryce Young by 25. That's just not happening.
And they don't, it's all jokes here. Don't be running up on me in the Walmart or whatever, like with questions or whatever. We good. But we good.
Leave Desmond alone if you see him in public. He actually like 6'1", he said. So you better lay off him anyway. He might got that reach.
Yo, the fan base is feisty today. I've never seen Schuyler only listen to the podcast. Would have sworn he was a 50-year-old man. You got an old man roast. What is happening today?
Damn.
He didn't follow up with love the show. So
I'll take that as a compliment, I guess.
Yeah, you have a very mature voice. That's what it is.
Yeah, and Schuyler is 6'3".
Thank you.
Schuyler used to play baseball, so you better be careful.
You got that arm.
He might be able to
arm length on you.
punch your head off.
We are. I think we're all in agreement. Defensive player of the year is Derrick Brown. Offensive player of the year, is it Chuba?
Oh, no question. Chuba Hubbard, baby.
It's Chuba, because I'm sitting there going through it.
Oh, no. Hold on. Rewind. We have to decide whether it's Thielen or Chuba.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's got to be Thielen.
He did catch over 100. And no one expected that, like, coming in here. Like, no one. So, I don't know, man. Crap, because they didn't even run half the season. So,
has to be.
I mean,
yeah, maybe it is.
It's got to be Thielen.
Yeah,
Thielen made it happen. He gave us some hope in a lot of games, and so did Chuba. Man, I think 1A, 1B, Chuba and Thielen, bright spots.
I'm fine with that. Biggest breakout player, offense or defense?
Well, it'd have to be defense, right?
Yeah. I mean, other than Chuba, Chuba was kind of doing this last year. So
does Derrick Brown count? Because I mean, he was good,
but he broke out last year. He broke out last year.
Yeah,
but,
we knew Derrick Brown was Derrick Brown last year.
We were waiting for him to go from here to here this year, and he did. Well, he went way up here. I can't think of a single person on the offense. Breakout player. On defense, somebody like a Troy Hill or a Sam Franklin or somebody like that. Can you even call that breakout?
I don't know about breakout. Like, oh my gosh, he's going to be a part of this thing long term. But Yetur had a nice season for a guy that went from 4-3 DN to a 3-4 line. But he's never played standing up.
And too, because he shut up some doubters too.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier in the season, a lot of people doubted him and what he can do. He took it. He was quiet. He worked. He kept his head down during training camp. And when his chance came, he came and he performed.
When I talked to him in training camp about all this, he was like as transparent as he could be with. He's like when I was going through all these footwork drills and everything, it felt so weird to me. He's like, I look lost. And I can't remember if a coach actually said this or not that I talked to. I can't even remember because I've had so much going on. But it was like almost like a baby giraffe, you know what I mean? Trying to find his way, trying to figure out how to walk. And he figured it out pretty darn good because he became pretty solid in that role. So I would say Yetur, I guess, but I don't know.
That's that kind of sums up the season.
Well, I guess you could say because of that, like because we're struggling to figure out a defensive guy, that's just the defense just being what they've already were.
Yeah. They stayed the course.
Yeah.
There's a couple to choose from. Storyline of the year.
Tepper.
My man went from like billionaire owner to like Marvel supervillain in like 15 weeks. Like, and that's why I wanted to step back. Because did you hear the thing that I haven't confirmed or whatever? I saw it on Twitter. Someone said that they're in good authority. They know that what actually happened in that booth was that one of the Jaguar fans, the guy he threw the drink on, was actually making fun of, I think it was Marquise Haynes. He had a concussion or something, and he was on the field. They had to get a stretcher for him, and he was like, get up, or making fun of him or whatever. And there was a couple of expletives exchanged between Tepper and the fan, and then eventually Tepper threw the drink. Any truth to that? Have you heard anything about that, Schuyler, at all?
I have not heard a single thing on that whole situation.
And I'm assuming that's false because it was on Twitter. And so, of course, it's on Twitter. Everybody's going to believe it. And I was just like, if that was the case, why wouldn't he just said that when it happened? Why would he have gone through the whole thing about saying security and all this other stuff? Why wouldn't he just been like, look, there was a fan booing my player. He was on the ground getting on a stretcher, and there was a fan booing, and my emotions got the best of me. And I acted out accordingly, and I apologize for my behavior. That would have gotten him so many brownie points with the Panther fan base than what actually got put out. Yeah. I do feel like it's easy to attach this narrative to Tepper now that he is this meddling owner, when in actuality, I feel like he just wants to win and he doesn't know how. Like he's never done this before, and he's a billionaire that's used to just getting whatever he wants by putting money down, and you can't do that in the NFL. You can't just spend money and build a team like you could like in another league or whatever. You can't even do that in really any of the pro sports anymore. Like Major League Baseball, you can't just build a team and expect to win. You got a pretty good shot, but a lot of times there's so much more to it than that. And I think he's starting to realize that through these different coaching changes, roster moves, and things of that sort. But now the worry is that they've given up so much roster-wise trying to figure this out. They've dug so much of a hole, like Schuyler said, that it's going to take a while to get out of this. This isn't going to be one of those things where like the Rams hire Sean McVay, the Rams were horrible the year before, 18 months later, the Rams are in the Super Bowl or whatever. It's not going to be like that. They had pieces kind of there. Or even if Jim Harbaugh comes here, it's not going to be like when he went to San Francisco. People forget by the time he got there. Say what?
You won 11 or 12 games, I think, in year one, right?
He did, because their defense had first and second rounders all up and down it because they had sucked for like 7 years. So that was the Mike Singletary years. I need winners. Can't win without him. I need winners. Like that was those years. That was what was the guy before him? Tomsula. You remember him? Mike Tomsula. He wore the suit on the sidelines. There was somebody else in there too, but they had a stretch where they weren't winning anything. And then Harbaugh comes in and he's like, oh, I got a number one pick in Alex Smith at quarterback. I've got all these dudes on defense. Patrick Willis, what? I got all these people on defense. I've got a defensive line. Like everything's here. I just need to implement what we do. And I was watching that Michigan game last night and watching their offense. Bro, I'm so in love with all the pre-snap movement they do. They're moving like 3 tackles. Like they're literally shifting dudes over here and over here. Like everyone's moving to one side, and like there's just all this stuff going on, and it's all for the run game. All of it's for the run game.
Hey, let's load up the shotgun over here and point it that direction and see what happens.
Another thing too, I noticed last night watching Michael Penix Jr. from Washington, because they were lined up in shotgun majority of the time too last night. But the thing I noticed, he was dropping back. Like he drops back 3-4 steps after he gets that shot. It was so apparent, like watching it and then thinking back to Bryce, where Bryce wasn't really moving off that spot. A lot of times, I bet that offensive line for the Panthers, Icky in particular, had no idea where Bryce Young was in the backfield on a lot of those sacks because he didn't drop back far enough. Sometimes it's just as easy as that. Like he just didn't get back far enough. Their back is turned to him. The defense can see where he is. The offensive line cannot until everyone's run past. And how many pictures did we see on Twitter of freeze frames of our offensive line facing Bryce Young and 3 dudes running at Bryce Young unabated, 2 seconds into the play or whatever. Like some of that's kind of what's going on. So you need somebody that understands a run game and offensive line. That's one of the reasons why I want Harbaugh, because he definitely, everywhere he's been, he has built the best offensive line in whatever league or conference or whatever. He had the best O-line in San Francisco. Weren't they just voted the best O-line in college football this year, Michigan?
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, and they looked it. Like Washington looked like
they were big. They was
swallowing
like,
them dudes up.
Washington looked like little boys out there.
Yeah. And they've been nice all year. So so I want somebody like that. But listen to it. Go ahead, Scott.
Washington had the best O-line.
I think you're right, because I think Michigan had it last year. And Washington took it this year, and Michigan came to this game with like, oh, really? Okay.
Michigan looked like they was definitely the big brother.
Yeah. I saw people going, Michigan looks like an SEC team. That bothers me so much. Like it's not like
I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
People act like the SEC is 15 really, really, really good teams. It's not. It's Alabama, it's Georgia, and then you're gonna have 2 more, and that's kind of it. That's it. And everyone's like, oh, this is the SEC. Michigan's there.
Tell you what, though, man. Listen, the Big Ten.
Man, That's another reason why Harbaugh needs to leave.
Yeah, he might not be able to get to that level again because
how many teams? 18 teams?
UW, Oregon, USC,
and UCLA.
I say we
UCLA
for the Pac-12 to stay.
Hey, look, they probably had the best season they had since like Reggie Bush was running around at USC. For it to be the last season for the Pac-12, and they have a season like they had like 5 teams ranked, like at one point, the top 25. So,
oh man, it wasn't the best. Man, listen, the best years was at least with Mariota, Kenyon Barner.
Oh yeah, I guess it would be a little bit after. Yeah, so that's what 2014, 12, 13, somewhere in there. Yeah. Wait.
There.
He played Cam, didn't he? Didn't he play Cam in the national championship?
No. That was
who was the quarterback at Oregon then? I almost said Bowden.
Darren Thomas.
Darren Thomas. That sounds right. Yeah. So, man, let's get to the Brian Burns comments because there was 2 comments I pulled. One is like directly after the game. This is from Alex Zitlow's Twitter, and I don't know if I pronounced his last name right. He's a writer from the Observer, and this is coming out of Burns' locker immediately after, and he's basically sorry, my mouse ain't working. He's talking about the camaraderie of the defense and how they're, even though they've gone through some troubles. Brian Burns has yet to have a winning season here, if I'm not mistaken, since he was drafted.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So he's gone through it, and
about to be on his 4th head coach, full-time head coach, right?
And I commend him because he's always said the right thing. You know what I mean? In terms of whenever this question gets asked, which is like every week, but you kind of feel like the cracks are starting to, fill in here a little bit.
The group that's around you and the guys that'll be back, can this defense be even better next season with you in the mix?
Definitely, especially the way, just like I said, especially with the adversity that we face this season. The core group of guys that's on this defense, like you just can't separate. Like we've been together for a while. The camaraderie is amazing. Like, I feel like there's so much more we can tap into, as a defense.
Brian,
now, let's take that and go to what was the
I love Dez's little detective.
Oh, look. Now what's the SpongeBob SquarePants card 48 hours later or whatever? Let's go
4 hours later.
This is Burns. This is Burns in the locker room after the game.
I just know they got a lot of stuff.
This from yesterday.
I just know they got a lot of stuff to do. They got a lot of stuff to figure out. I don't think I'm number 1 on that list right now. So, yeah.
So how do you stay patient, right? Because like maybe in other years you'd be able to kind of jump on some of this stuff and get it figured out, but you, like you said, you're gonna have to wait.
Focusing on myself. The best thing I can do is be ready. So if it do turn out that they do want to keep me here and I stay, I'm ready. And if it turns out I have to go somewhere else, I'm definitely ready for that too. So as long as I'm ready in any angle, I'm fine.
And shout out to Sheena Quick for the clip, that second clip there. Guys, thoughts on Brian Burns and his mentality at this point, having gone through the season, and it kind of sounds like he's kind of resigned to the fact he might not be here next year, but it sounds like he wouldn't mind staying. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, come on, bro. Like, starting off this season, right? He's got every right to have those questions, right?
Yeah.
They were going through contract talks the very beginning of the season. And the Panthers said, nah, it ain't gonna work out. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to God, first of all, for keeping Brian Burns healthy throughout this year. Yeah. I know a lot of prayers were answered for that, just keeping him healthy, keeping him in good health, because he deserves to get paid, no doubt about it. But his questions, as far as there's a lot of work that needs to be done. He's not a dummy. He knows the business. He knows Derrick Brown is balling. Like, you know what I'm saying? So like
every day.
Yeah. So like for him, it's like, I would love to be here. It's up to for the organization to figure that out. And that's the truth of the matter. All he's got to worry about is staying healthy, which he did. And just continuing to work on his craft, which he's going to do in this offseason, I mean, whatever happens next year, I can tell you this: it's going to be scary because Brian Burns, we might in a good way. Yes, it's going to be very scary because you can just watching that second clip, you can already tell he's focused.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. Like for him, getting through this season healthy, that's got to be a breath of fresh air. Just think about that, fellas. You going into work every day knowing that it's in your control to maintain your health. Because if you don't, your career could be ruined. Not just your season, but your career. The plans that you have for your family, the plans that you have for your legacy. You know what I'm saying? Could be all in shambles because you don't have a long-term deal, which you were holding out for and hoping to get earlier this season. And you say, you know what? I'm going to do what's right. I'm going to do the right thing, which a lot of people wouldn't have done.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people would have said, nah, man, I know my worth. I ain't about to go out there and get hurt. This is a business. Loyalty. I'm going to be loyal to that paycheck.
You could have sat out.
You want to know what? You want to know what Brian Burns proved to us this year? That he's a man of God, first of all, and he put his full faith in God this year. And he's loyal to his team, his teammates. That's why we play this game. We play this game for the guys in that locker room and the mouths that you feed and the people that are under your roof at home. That's why you play this game. It's deeper than what people see on Twitter and what people see on Sundays, Saturdays, Thursdays, Mondays. You know what I'm saying? Like these guys are putting their bodies on the line and putting so much time and energy into their craft to give people something to watch and to cheer for. And that last clip, man, you can just see it. He's controlling what he can control, and just thank God for him being healthy towards the end of this season. Go in the off season, he about to go crazy next year. I'm just watch.
I have and Schuyler, maybe you can help with this. I have a question with salary cap, bonus, the way they structure stuff or whatever, because I thought I saw with Brown and Burns that if they extend them, it would actually create more salary cap room overall for the Panthers. So if they do get a deal done, if they structure it a certain way, they could actually come out the other side with actually more money to spend in this offseason if they can get a deal done. Is that correct? Or is that just people just flapping their gums?
I think that would probably apply more to Derrick because he's under contract and you could backload that thing, where Burns, he doesn't have any years under his contract. So you would have to pay him.
So Burns is unrestricted, right now.
Burns will be an unrestricted free agent. So, and the thing too, what Stu was saying, that's incredible that he played this whole year and didn't get hurt. He didn't hold out. That says a lot about him, especially this is a guy played in week 18 on a 2-15 or a 2-14 team that had nothing to play for, and he still played, and he played hard.
He got hurt during the year. Remember, he got hurt. He got nicked up a couple times during the year and still came back and played. I
mean, that just shows his character, first of all, but second of all, you almost kind of wonder too the slight dip in production that he had. How much of that he'll never admit it, and he said it the other day that it wasn't an issue, but how much of that was him just maybe trying to protect himself in some spots?
Absolutely. I'm not about to get cut by no running back coming out.
Getting double teamed out here. We're down 25-3, and
my ankle, you crazy?
Raining.
The good thing for Panthers fans, though, if you want to have some optimism, there's a new GM going to be coming in. So these conversations will be at a whole new place. That could be good or bad, but there's a chance that there's a better starting point for those contract negotiations when the new GM gets in place. Now, Dan Morgan, how much of a voice he's going to have in those talks if he's still here, I don't know. We'll have to see how this all gets structured, but I think there's some optimism for him to return.
We were talking about the biggest storylines, and obviously, probably the biggest storylines, Frank Wright getting fired, 12 games into the season. That probably stumps everything else. That and Teppergate. Those are probably the two biggest things or whatever that happened this year. Before we get into the general manager talk, because we're going to separate the coaching talk, I would imagine they hire a general manager first, but I would assume, but who knows? We'll do the coaching thing next week. But before we get to the general manager thing, I wanted to bring up what happened in the Saints-Falcons game at the end. The victory formation, because we got to run it back on this thing.
Oh, Jameis.
Yeah, because I've had people. I posted in one of my Facebook groups that I admin, that's a sports group, or somebody did, and they were like, they didn't see the big deal with it. You got to stop it if it's going to happen. Blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, no. If you're in victory formation and you run a play in it, that is bush league. That's like the ultimate definition of bush league. Like somebody get hurt doing something. They're not prepared for you to run a play.
If you're going to do it, at least line up.
Line up and run it out so they know what's coming. Let them stop. Like, how does that running back? How would you feel, Stu, if they were coming to you like, hey, man, you ain't had a touchdown all year. We're going to get you this touchdown. We're just going to run it, and we're going to be in victory. They ain't even going to know what's coming. Would you even feel good about that touchdown? Like, they weren't even defending you.
Yeah, I would. Thank you. Thanks.
I love it.
But I will say this. Everything about the decision to do it, the decision making of, hey, let's get him in the end zone. Our guy deserves to be in the end zone. Now, as far as like drawing up a play and saying like, hey, we're going to go and kneel it, but we're going to fake kneel it and run it, that's questionable because you don't want to put other guys on the other side of the ball in an unfair advantage to where guys get hurt. Because as we know it now, like kneeling the ball, that means they're trying to end the game, right? So you don't ever want to play this game and give guys an unfair advantage to where someone can get hurt. And I think in all seriousness, that's, one side. The other side, though, to question Jameis and his character for doing so, I think people need to fall back because the reason behind doing it was to get a guy that they love and obviously cherish on the team an opportunity to score. And so, like, for me, it's like as a player, I get that. Like, it's the end of the year, it's the end of the season, and it's like, yeah, let's get my man in the end zone. But I will say, let's just draw up a power play and just do that.
Let's don't trick them. Let's not run them. That's my only problem. I don't have a problem with them running it, especially against a division opponent. If we had a chance to score 48 or whatever on the
I don't care about running the score up. I don't care about running the score up. I'm all about running that score up.
Yeah, that's fine. You get paid to do that. Now, I'm more concerned about the fact that the coach told them not to do this, and they all in the huddle were like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. To me, that's kind of like disrespect. Not even kind of. That's disrespect to Dennis Allen. That's almost like Jameis was like, look, y'all, he ain't even going to be here next year. Let's go on and run this thing, and they're going to talk about it for a week, and then we're going to be out of here, and we're going to all have something to drink and eat some cracked legs and be good to go, and everything will be fine.
Man, look. At the end of the day, I can tell you this.
Oh, I just found something.
That team, the guys on that team right now don't care about what happened.
No,
and if you want to talk about as far as like, oh, what are they going to do to Jameis? Nothing. Like, so,
but see, like, that's my problem. He knew they were going to do nothing. And right after the game, when they were interviewing him, he had kind of a smirk on his face, like, yeah, they told us to kneel it, but we made a team decision.
With the reporter.
Yes.
Now, he handled. Hey, I'll tell you this: he handled himself really well with this reporter.
Okay, so I've not heard this yet.
This reporter, man, this reporter got on my nerves. I'm like, look, man, you a Falcons fan or what?
So this is
leave
from,
my man alone.
Where's this from? This is from Footballism on Twitter. I haven't heard. Apparently, both of you guys have seen this already. I haven't heard it yet. So let's. This is today. Jameis Winston getting questioned about what the hell happened on Sunday.
Do you think we regret that? Well, you do have to play these guys twice a year. That's all I'm saying. We already played them twice. I know, but I'm talking about the future. Somebody's got to play these guys twice a year. That's all. How do you feel about it? Tell me how you feel about it. Not good. Why don't you feel good about it? Because you got to play these guys twice a year. But what about it makes you not feel good about it? The head coach tells you to kneel it up. You're asking my opinion? Yes. I think you should have kneeled it up. Okay. Well, I'm just telling you as respectfully as I can. You answer my question as respectfully as you can. I'm telling you as respectfully as I can that I respectfully disagree with you. That's you disagree with me or the entire team? Whoever made that decision. Okay. So you disagree with the entire team. So thank you. No, I'm just being honest and respectful. And that's what I'm attempting to do too. And that's what I am doing. So, yes. Do you think?
Hold on, man.
That's
wow.
I'm with Stu on that though. The reporter's just like, I mean, just let it go, man. Like, get your few initial quotes.
The reporter sounded like he
had a gripe.
Somebody came and put dirt all over his couch or
You
something.
wanted him to like
standing
cry.
up.
He wanted to break down and start crying. Like, man, we shouldn't have did it. Like, I don't know what happened. I broke down. Like, I'm sorry.
So
you have no regrets.
The thing that I didn't find out about it, was that an incentivized score? Like, was that why they did it, or is it just because they wanted to do it?
It was his only touchdown of the year.
Like, bro, like you talking about a guy that came off of a year scoring 17 touchdowns, right? They brought him here because he was that guy last year. He led the league in touchdowns, rushing touchdowns last year. And so, of course, they all felt and knew his situation. Like, man, my man ain't got a touchdown all year. Come on now, let's not just kneel it. So, like,
I mean,
yeah, like it's questionable within the huddle. Like, they're probably like, yo, let's just go up there and kneel it, but not really kneel it and just run it in there. I'll just hand you the ball and he's gonna get in the end zone.
Look, I'm sorry, dog. I'm cutting him. I'm sorry. Maybe call me cutthroat or I'm cutting him because
Desmond, don't be like that,
dude. Especially if I'm Dennis Allen, I gotta take control back of my team. Like he punking me.
You got control of the team. The team is on the same page. That's what you want. They on the same page.
They're against me.
On the same page. Take that same energy next year and go out there and win some football games.
So I should tell them the opposite of what I want them to do. So they'll actually do what I want them to do. Like, I felt bad for Dennis Allen because then he had to deal with Arthur Smith. He had to deal with Arthur. I thought Arthur Smith was going to swing on him. Like, he came running out. He's going to give him the Goldberg spear. Like, what you doing, man? What's going on? What's wrong with you?
Maybe he knew Arthur was getting canned the next day, so it didn't matter because.
Ooh. Maybe he thought he might be too, because Dennis Allen still got a job, don't he?
Yeah, they're committed to keeping him, from what I had seen.
Wow, that's great for us because they're in the NFC South. So, you, my boy Blue says Jameis looking like King the Conqueror.
All I know is, man, look, Jameis has proved that he's a great teammate. And me being a player, that's all you want. You want a good teammate. You want a guy that's going to be in that locker room and make cloudy days sunny.
Shannon Sharp. I was following the Shannon Sharp take on First Take because he's like, I'd cut him. I'd cut him right now. Dennis Allen needs to be cut too. He needs to be fired. I'd cut him on the spot. He went off for like 5 minutes, and I was listening to him. Granted, I was still half sick with the flu. I'm sitting there with a fever, like, yeah. Yeah, I probably should go ahead and just let him go. Yeah, but they've always treated Jameis as the second quarterback, no matter who's there. You know what I mean? Like,
he's a locker room guy. He's a locker room dude. He's a good teammate.
They follow him.
They follow his lead.
So luckily for us, that has not led them to an NFC South title or multiple starts for Jameis. So I don't know. I had to bring that up because I know you guys saw it and was in there. Before I want to look at Scott here because we were supposed to do the trial of Scott Fitterer last week and it didn't really work out that way. It's kind of working out that way this time around. Of course, Scott got let go Monday. I was actually in the camp thinking he might stay because I'd been told he was actually at the bowl games with Dan Morgan scouting players. So I'm like, why is he there if they're going to just let him go on Monday? I've given up asking questions about this franchise in terms of why they do what they do. So Fitterer is no longer here. And you can go find this, actually. Schuyler wrote this for Fan Nation All Panthers. His title, Everything That Went Wrong in Fitterer's Tenure. And it's kind of a timeline of where some of these things kind of happened, which led to what happened on Monday. And some of this is while Matt Rule's here. Some of this is while Frank Wright's here. But the first thing, picking up the fifth-year option on Sam Darnold, I forgot completely. We gave up a second, a fourth, and a sixth for Sam Darnold. And at the time, everybody in the league thought it was a good move. That he just, Darnold just needed to change the scenery. Didn't work. We traded him on. We didn't even trade Sam, did we? Out of here.
No.
We traded 3 picks. He was here for all of.
And like I stated in the article, like I don't think at the time it was a bad deal because like everyone just thought he needed to get out of New York and away from Adam Gase. Well, who knew that he was just going to New York South at this point? And but the bigger problem for me at the time was not what they gave up, because if you go back at the time of the trade, if it works out, that's a bargain at a second, a fourth, and a sixth. Obviously, in hindsight, it didn't work out, but the biggest issue for me at the time was picking up the 5th-year option before he even played a snap. You have no idea what he's going to do. We saw what happened, and you couldn't get away from that commitment.
Why did they do that? We were talking about that on draft that week when the draft happened. We were like, why in the world did they pick up Sam Darnold's option right after the first round was over? Like
that was 100%. At least in my opinion, Sam's agent just pushing it and saying, "Look, if this kid has a good year, you're gonna have to pay him a crap ton of money."
Well, let's do that. Let's see him have a good year first. Like I'm tired of just sending out money and picks and hoping to save money. That's what it felt like they've been doing all this time. Speaking of saving money, they let Hassan Reddick walk. They had Reddick and Burns here together, and they both put up numbers when they were here. Now Reddick wanted to go home. Can't really blame him for that. He's unrestricted. He could choose where he wanted. He ended up with Philly. If I'm not mistaken, they got back to the Super Bowl last year.
Got back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. No, they ain't win. I don't think they're gonna win it this year either. Robbie Anderson extension. They did extend Robbie. Robbie had 95 receptions in 2020, went over 1,000 yards. We actually had 2,000-yard receivers that year because DJ Moore was here. But it was with Teddy Bridgewater. They extended him after they let Bridgewater go, and then we saw what happened with Robbie. Trading Christian McCaffrey, and this is the one y'all know I've been stuck on. They didn't get a first-round pick out of it, and what did they get? They got we got 3 picks out of it.
2 went to Pittsburgh, which ended up being the tight end from Georgia, Darnell Washington, and then I think Nate Herbig or whatever from Wisconsin. And then the other one they used in the deal with Chicago.
Yeah, they shipped off. Yeah, the 2 they shipped off to Pittsburgh. They used to move up to select DJ Johnson, who had 1 tackle for loss and 0 tackles as a rookie. And then the other pick was in the deal to Chicago, which we land on now, trading DJ Moore and several draft picks to Chicago to move up 8 spots to 1 to draft Bryce Young. 2 of those picks, if I'm not mistaken, are playing. They're starting for Chicago, aren't they?
I'd have to look at it.
They got our 9th from last year and our 2nd. They get our 1st this year and our 2nd next year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And I want to say that 1st and that 2nd are defensive players that are playing for Chicago. DJ Moore just had one of his best years of his career. And I kind of, y'all know I'm here for the Petty. I'm so here. I'm Richard Petty, Kyle Petty, Peppermint Petty, name them. I'm here for the Petty. DJ Moore probably had the most petty moment of the whole season when they were asking him about Scott Fitterer getting fired. He's like, yeah, I might have had something to do with that. It's like, damn. All right, DJ. He's still not happy. He's not happy that went down. Yeah, like bang, bang. So hiring Frank Wright. Fitterer obviously had a hand in hiring Frank Wright, shortest head coach in tenure in the last 45 years, and then just the lack of talent around Bryce Young. But that last one there, and I mentioned it before, some of that I think was part of the plan that Tepper wanted to do, because we talked about that on previous episodes where they felt like they could kind of skimp on the skill position players and make him the Steph Curry point guard, kind of serving it up to everybody, making it better. That just shows you don't completely understand how football works, David Tepper, because not all these players are the same player. Like you can't just mix and match and it's okay as long as you got a guy to get it to them. Some dudes are really, really good. Some dudes are good. Some dudes are good enough to be in the league. And then you got these other guys. And you can't just take these other guys and, put them here and here and here and let Bryce throw it to them and you get the same result. That's kind of what we did this year. So, hopefully we don't go back and do that again next year. Do you guys feel like David Tepper is the type to learn from his mistakes? And that's kind of where I wanted to get to here towards the end of this episode. Do you feel like he's that type or is he the type to bang his head on the wall until it actually happens?
I got my opinions. Stu, you want to go first?
Of course, man. I mean, the guy is who he is for a reason. Like he's he's super successful in a world that is full of economics. You know what I'm saying? So, to ask the question, is a guy like that capable of learning from his mistakes? I think that's a silly question. There's other questions that you might want to ask, but that's a silly one.
What's
and I think that I think like as far as like applying, like how do you go about applying what you learn? You know what I'm saying? I think that's really kind of the next step that's obviously started now, which is what have we learned from the last, 3 coaching hires, you know what I'm saying, or coaching situations, and going out and seeking a GM and a head coach to lead this organization. We have to apply what we learned, and be able to create a culture that is going to be passed down throughout the whole entire organization as far as what is the baseline here. And if we can find out what the baseline is and preach that to whoever comes in to take reins of the organization, that's our hope. You know what I'm saying, as Panther Nation and as a fan base.
Scott.
Well, I mean, I agree with a lot Stu just said. I mean, do I think Tepper has learned from his mistakes? I would go more on the side of I think he understands what mistakes he made and when he was wrong on something. But learning from them, I think that comes with, in this business, winning. So finding the right guys, understanding and identifying those people, whether it be in the front office, the coaching staff, personnel, whatever, that to me has not changed. There's still no culture. There's still no identity. And I think you can fix that with Dan Morgan personally, because he understands that. He's played here. He knows what it takes to win. He knows what needs to be here to win.
Yeah, I'm a Dan Morgan fan.
I am too. I've always been a Dan Morgan fan.
I think this is a guy that, again, he takes a lot of flack from people. I just think he's an incredibly, I wouldn't say impatient, but he's really eager to win. He wants to win so badly, and he wants to do whatever it takes to do that. And if he gets the sense, this is probably not going to work out, I shouldn't have hired this guy, he's going to make that decision to make the change. And I understand people wanting to call him impatient, and I think you have the right to think that. And in some ways, I kind of feel like that. But if he gets this next coaching hire and GM situation right, no one's going to care. But that's, again, what we were saying last year. So, David, it's up to you.
Look at the Texans. We were talking about look at the Texans at this point last year to where they are now. Like, you had Stephen A. Smith on First Take basically telling African Americans shouldn't even apply for this job. You know what I mean? And
that roster was in such bad shape, man. Like they were going through coaches like underwear.
Like once a year. Lovie Smith was out after a year. The dude before him was out after a year. Was it Cully? Did you say his name? Yeah, he was out, and it was like, Stephen A. was going hard on the Texans in terms of like, this is an organization that you should not be around. If you're a black quarterback, you shouldn't want to be around it. Like all these things. 12 months later, look at them.
12 months later,
in the playoffs, D'Amico Ryans might be coach of the year. For
hands down.
I mean, that's why I want a defensive dude, man. I want a defensive dude. Maybe it is. Maybe it is Vrabel. I don't know. I'm trying to think of an offensive-minded coach that has that same like dog type mentality.
Vrabel and Derrick Henry, the king.
I saw somebody saying something like, "Ooh, bringing Derrick Henry in here too." I'm like, if they run it, like if you're gonna bring them, make sure you run the ball with them. Like that's where we are.
No, that's what they did in Tennessee.
we're beaten down as a franchise. We're like, yeah, you can bring Derrick Henry, but we
Boy,
don't expect you to run the ball with him.
imagine a play action with Bryce Young and Derrick Henry.
Did Derrick Henry say he wanted to play with Bryce? I saw that too.
Man, that's going that would be Crimson Tide, baby. Roll Tide.
Yeah. Go after all these Alabama kids right here.
T. Higgins out at the X.
Ooh, see, this is the part of the season I like. This is the good part.
You're gonna have all the Alabama fans coming to and that actually might be a great plan. You might generate a lot of revenue there, baby.
Alabama kids. That's what Matt Rule tried to do. He went to try to get all the Baylor kids and all other kids. It's like, nah. That might work for Alabama. Philly did it with Georgia. That entire defense is Georgia.
Well, I mean, Baylor's fan base is literally Chip, Joanne, and like 5 other people. So.
Yeah. And plus, people forget, too, I'm still amazed by how Matt Rule has made his money. Because every place he went, it was like he was there for 3 years, right? First year, rebuild. Second year, rebuild. Third year, boom, they win 9, 10, 11 games. He moves to the next job. Same thing. Rebuild, boom. 10 years, moves up to the next thing. Gets to the Panthers. Same thing. They didn't have that boom, and he got let go into that, what was it, third season? 4 games in or whatever. So,
I mean, technically,
stumbles into a kicker check at Nebraska.
I mean, technically, they improved. It was just after he left. So, I don't know if that happens. Probably not if he's over.
Can we give him credit for being absent? But I do think Vrabel ends up in New England, although just from doing this episode, it's kind of convinced me, well, maybe we should kick the tires on him. Commanders will retain Eric Bieniemy as their OC. I don't know.
They pull Charlotte Hornets and bring Riverboat back.
I saw that. That's
not going to happen. I'm just throwing.
Let's just clear that out right now. Ron's not coming back. He probably loves to come back.
If you want to have some butts in them seats,
you bring Ron back and put Cam in as executive VP. That's
if you talk about learning from your mistakes, give Steve Wilkes a call.
I saw Steve Wilkes. The Chargers are requesting to interview him for their head coaching position, so he's going to be in the circles too.
I hope Steve Wilkes gets a job that has a turnkey situation, like a lot of these coaches.
That's the one.
Be getting.
That's the one I want Wilkes to.
I don't want him going to like some situation where it's like, all right, man, you got up a creek without a paddle, baby. Make it happen.
Like he was in Arizona, and they gave him 8 months or whatever to turn it around. Like, nah, not good enough.
I hated that. That.
I want to. If he gets the Chargers job, that'd be perfect because he can build the defense. And like you said, they got Herbert. They got their offense. Now the skill position players are getting a little older, longer in the tooth, but they can do that in the draft. Wilkes deserves a chance. He deserves a fair opportunity to show what he can do as a head coach. He just had one of the top defenses in the league in San Francisco. So I don't know. Paul Mancini says Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn is head coach. I think he's on the list of people we're going to interview. He's the current Dallas Cowboy defensive coordinator. One of the bright spots to this franchise would be the defense if they can keep the pieces here that they have. I'd imagine it's going to be much, much worse if they can't keep Derrick Brown, Brian Burns, J.C. Horn, Frankie Louvu. Well, Horn's going to be here for another couple of years, but just that group that Burns was talking about in that clip, I assume he was talking about those particular players. That's the heart and soul of the team to me. Like right now, like you need somebody to come in here and build off the defense and can build the offense while the defense is just out here hurting people. Like play these smash mouth 12-6 type games. If it's a win, it's a win. I don't care if you're scoring 35 points. Just get us the dub, man. Just get us the dub. Run the ball. Get back
I'll say this as a little, I don't know if it's a nugget or anything, but it makes sense. A GM candidate that I don't think they've submitted a request for yet, but if they do, that would be eye-opening, is Ray Agnew with Detroit.
Ooh.
If they submit a request for him, then obviously he's got the direct tie to Ben Johnson.
Yes. And he's got ties here. He's from Winston-Salem. He played football at Winston-Salem State. There's a street named after him up here in Winston-Salem. He's got ties here. So if
where did he play college ball at?
Winston-Salem State.
Oh. Where did he go to high school at?
Carolina too.
Where did Ray go to high school? I have to look it up. No, Ben Johnson went to high school in Nashville.
Oh, that's the one. Oh, so they both from out here. Okay.
Yeah, they're both from down here. Now Johnson went to college at UNC.
Yeah.
See if I can find.
Someone said Slowick.
He played for Carver. I didn't realize that. My gosh, that's right up the street from me. He played for Carver here in Winston-Salem. Oh yeah, I want Ray Agnew. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize he got drafted first round by the Patriots, 1990 draft. He did not play for Winston State. Excuse me, he played for NC State. I think he did something with Winston State after the fact.
Kelly for the Raiders is another one to watch. Interim GM out there right now. And
I pulled up a list because I was like, and we're gonna get out of here in just a second, but I pulled up the list of, as it stands today, GM candidates that are being floated about, I guess you could say. Who are these people, Schuyler? Because I'm looking at the names like, I don't know who these people are. Like, who are these people? Who's the name that stands out for you?
So Brant Tillis was in the interview rounds the time that Fitterer got the job. So he's a second timer. Ed Dodds is a second timer. Kelly, I can't remember if he's a second timer or not, but Hallaby's interesting. I think Brandon Brown's going to be a GM very soon. I don't know if it'll be this cycle. I think this will be his feeler cycle, get his foot in the door. Mike Greenberg, not Greeny from ESPN, very up and coming, very good up and coming guy. That's very good in the cap space, analytical world, and that's the thing with a lot of these guys. They're heavy analytic guys, which makes sense when you just talk about David Tepper. So. I don't know. I mean, of this list, Tillis, maybe. That's the one that kind of stands out the most to me. But I like him a lot. I like him a lot.
What were you about to say, Stu?
I was going to say Alec Hallaby. Just from the sense that he's been, with one team for so long, right? Eagles. And it's, just looking at his profile, disclaimer, I know nothing about Alec Hallaby. but as I'm reading notes, and what stands out to me is his focus on player evaluation, roster management, resource allocation. Like those are things I think that this team could, really, provide some focus on. As far as rebuilding or building, if he's been on the staff for the Eagles and you look at the Eagles and how they've built their team the last, 3 years?
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure he spent so much time with the Eagles learning so much. And I mean, rising through his ranks, I'm pretty sure he started at the very bottom. You know what I'm saying? So if he's, now an assistant general manager, his experience and his value as of late has to be the reason why he's the assistant general manager. And so, I mean, player evaluation, roster management, the way the Eagles have been put together underneath Jalen Hurts, I like what I see. You know what I'm saying? I like the mentality. I like the type of players that they do have, the grit at the offensive line position. So I mean, that's what I'm kind of looking at when I'm reading, backgrounds of all these GMs, because I don't know nothing about them.
I don't know what they look like.
But just like all the fans, and just like everybody else right now that's a Panther fan or that has a team that is looking in the GM department, we're all searching and we're all learning. And so those are the things I look at.
The thing too, the good GMs, you don't know what they look like. If you really think about it, we don't see the good. They don't really get credit when it's when things fall apart. That's when you start to know who the general manager is. His face and like his voice. And he's like, oh, hold on a minute, wait a second, hold on. Like it's when you don't know who they are. That's usually when they're doing a good job.
The big proponent for a long time that the GM should have a record I mean, technically they do, but I think the only time that really gets brought up is in like Scott's case, where he was on the hot seat there towards the end, then he gets canned. I think you should have a GM record. I mean, but that's just me. But what I was going to say with Adam Peters, because I saw someone in the comments say something about him.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that he hasn't been on that initial list yet. That's not saying that won't happen, and that just might be a matter of when and not if. But he's going to be a hot candidate. Maybe they already know that, feel like it's just not worth the time. They interviewed him the last time around too.
It looks like Hallaby's on the list. Matthew 3:16 is saying, per Albert Breer, the Panthers plan to interview him later this week. So it does look like they're trying to get their general manager in first before they do the coaching thing. But they got a short little stretch here to do it, because now you got, how many openings was it? 5, 6? Well, somebody else got fired. Well, Vrabel got fired today. So that's 6 openings, I think. So they got to 6 or 7. So they got to get the GM in and then go. Because if you wait till the very end, you're going to be left with the crumbs, man. You're going to be left with the crumbs on the plate. And we deserve better.
Have this wrapped up by the end of next week, the GM search.
I think so too. Well,
I think if memory serves me right, the Fitterer search was about 2.5 weeks, I think. So January 22nd, that's the date where you can start interviewing head coach candidates in person. You kind of want to have a little bit of wiggle room. You don't want to hire the GM 3 days before and then start interviewing guys. You want to have kind of an idea.
That is literally in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So the 22nd's a week from this upcoming Monday. So things are going to start going downhill. Well, not downhill. Things are going to start rolling downhill pretty fast in terms of us kind of having an idea. But it could be Dan Morgan at the end of all. I thought he was analytical too. I thought that's why he's kind of in the building, because he's the analytical side. So
as well, cap guy.
Yeah. So maybe he stays in some sort of role, and they bring in someone. They need a liaison between ownership and the public, because Tepper don't speak a whole lot anyway. But you need someone to be the spokesperson that's not the GM, that can actually explain what's going on and be the face of the franchise and that kind of thing, which maybe is Cam Newton, something to that effect. I'm still clinging on to that hope, because that actually makes me feel good just to think that maybe they could do something like that and get back in the good graces of the fans. But now that the season's over and everyone's kind of exhaled, I feel like the fan base it's going to take a lot for the fans to completely give up on the Carolina Panthers. I know it was easy to say, I didn't watch this year, I wasn't going to waste my time, blah, blah, blah. You're all going to be back. You're all going to be back next year. We're all going to be 0-0. We're going to have new free agents, a new coach. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a 5th season to Bleav in Panthers. Everyone's going to be all giddy because the division's horrible, and we're going to have a chance. And it happens every year. We've done this every year I've been here. I don't Bleav in Panthers. This happens every single year. Maybe next year will be the year where we break through and we get this thing right. And like Schuyler said, hopefully Tepper has learned from these hires and knows specifically what he wants. I will say kudos to them for hiring a firm this time around to actually help out, because they didn't do that any of the times before, I don't Bleav. So, and I think the firm they hired is the firm that wasn't the one that helped the 49ers and the Eagles and the Rams or something like that with their stuff. So that's a good look. So maybe he's, maybe he is learning from his stuff. Final thoughts here from you guys before we get out of here. Trying to think of anything else I want to touch on. There's not really, no. Go Harbaugh, go Blue. I'm not even a Michigan fan. I just wanted them to win, so he had no reason to stay. It's the only reason why I wanted to know. I was sitting there cheering for the Wolverines last night. I'm like, yeah. And then things over. I'm like, all right, what do we need to do to bring Harbaugh here? What needs to happen? What's next? What needs to happen? So
Brown's about to make the Super Bowl.
Excuse me? Say that again?
Browns are going to make the Super Bowl.
Do we want to do that? Do we want to do that in this episode? Give our Super Bowl picks real quick?
No, I'm just joking. They ain't gonna.
Are you? They got defense.
I mean, they got a great defense, man. The reason why I'm saying they're not is because I really, really hope that Baltimore does.
Baltimore deserves it. They've probably been the best team all year, top to bottom.
But if Baltimore loses to the Browns, I ain't surprised. Put it that way, because right now Joe Flacco is out there playing with no risk.
He's like a Disney movie. He's like a Disney movie right now. Like literally, came off the couch leading the Browns to it's a Disney movie.
Yeah.
That's a Disney movie. Right now, I do not trust the Eagles. Stay away from them. They've lost like 5 of their last 6. Something's wrong with that locker room.
Lost really bad to the
Giants. Something stinky going on with them. I don't know what it is. And then it's the 49ers, man. It's going to be 49ers Cowboys NFC Championship game, I'm pretty sure. And
we can
Cowboys
talk about this later, but I think that the Niners, I hope they just haven't peaked. You know?
Yeah.
Like we haven't seen them peak throughout the season, and we'll be able to tell.
Have you given up on the Chiefs?
Never give up on your boy
Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes.
He's gonna have to go on the road in the playoffs for the first time ever.
It's gonna be cold too.
Yeah,
it's gonna be
gonna be an Arrowhead, and they're gonna be all loud like against the other, against the people you're playing against. It's gonna be loud against you.
Yeah,
and the hottest team.
I don't think Miami got it. Miami ain't gonna get it.
Miami's.
No, they ain't got it.
Bills.
The Bills have it because I feel like they have not peaked. All about teams that haven't peaked.
Yeah, the Bills and maybe Detroit on the NFC side. The Rams. Watch out for the Rams.
Rams are a dark horse. The Rams and the Browns. I'm telling you,
the Rams offense, like when they're all out there with Puka and Cooper Kupp and that running back you was talking about the running back last week,
Kieran Williams.
Williams and then you got Stafford out there. They might be one of the best offenses in the whole league. So keep an eye on them. It's going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun. I mean, I'm kind of gotten used to not seeing Panthers in the playoffs, so I've kind of prepared myself for it. But I don't know. We'll get through wild card weekend, and when we come back next week, we'll get into the division round heavy and start going through that, as well as the coaching search, because maybe by then we'll have an idea of who the general manager is going to be. So that might give us a better idea of where they go coaching wise as well. These dominoes are going to start to fall quickly. So the regular season's over for the Panthers, but we're not done yet. We'll be around doing our weekly stuff. We still got playoffs, Super Bowl, draft, free agency, coaching search, all the stuff you're used to hearing from us for the past couple of years. So we'll get into all that too. If you guys don't have anything else, we'll go ahead and stop it right here. For Schuyler Callihan and Jonathan Stewart, this is Desmond Johnson, and you've been listening and watching the Bleav in Carolina Panthers podcast here on Bleav Podcast Networks, brought to you by BetOnline. Keep pounding.